All right, Paul, Catalina, top 5 at the end of each show. One of them this week was what programs have benefited the most from the transfer portal. Of course, that's changed in the last couple of 2 or 3 days with all the news. Mitch Sherman, theathletic.com, covers Nebraska football, which he should get a raise for doing that. Joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Do they feel pretty good in Lincoln about what they've been able to add to the what has been kind of a puzzle that sometimes has not made sense?
Yeah, first you can talk to my bosses about that request there.
I will.
Yeah, get back to me. Let me know what they say. But yeah, I mean, it's been Smokey. It's been a good 7 weeks for Nebraska, which was not the case of the 7 weeks previous to that. But 7 weeks ago today, Nebraska on Black Friday finished out the 2021 season with another 1-score loss. It was the NCAA record or FBS record 8th loss by 1 score in a single season against Iowa to finish 3-9. So about as bad as could have ever been imagined from a win-loss perspective. And since then, Huskers under Scott Frost entering his 5th year have gone through kind of a metamorphosis with this coaching staff, especially on the offensive side. And then the work that they've done through the portal, officially announcing just today. So good timing on this conversation. 10 mid-year transfers, in addition to some commitments, or at least one commitment from a kicker who will be coming after the spring semester. So, you're talking about close to 10%, or actually more than 10% of the entire roster, along with the 16-player recruiting class and 5 new assistant coaches. So, of course, the transfer portal and those 2 new quarterbacks, including Casey Thompson from the University of Texas, are of most note when you look at this from a national view.
I'm interested, particularly, Mitch, in what they did at quarterback. I mean, obviously most people would be, but it is curious. A lot of teams go in and get one guy because it's hard to get more than one. You're trying to get a starter, but they lose Adrian Martinez, which was in the best interest of both parties, clearly, because they'd kind of gone as far as they could go together. But they bring in Casey Thompson, who's also going to be the starter. But then they go get Chubba Purdy, who has a lot more eligibility left and can push Casey Thompson a little bit. Is it good that they brought in some actual competition? Because maybe that was the problem with Adrian Martinez. They had to sink or swim with him no matter what.
Well, yeah. I mean, we assume that Casey Thompson is going to be the guy. And obviously with his credentials and his experience, he's unlikely to go to a place if he doesn't expect that he's going to be the starter. And I fully expect that when Nebraska goes to Ireland and plays Northwestern in Dublin on August 27th, that Casey Thompson's going to be taking that first snap. He's going to be the starting quarterback. But I don't think Chubba Purdy, as a transfer from Florida State, is coming in without the expectation that he's going to have the chance to compete in the spring. And in fact, I think that Logan Smothers, who started the final game of the season for Nebraska when Adrian Martinez was hurt, would not have come back this semester if he didn't have the expectation that he would be allowed and able to compete for that position when the spring kicks off on February 28th. Also, all that said, Thompson is the most experienced, the most accomplished, perhaps the most talented of that trio. And even going 2 more down the line, Nebraska has a redshirt freshman quarterback with a lot of talent, and then a kid from San Antonio, Richard Torres, coming in also this week at the semester as a true freshman early enrollee. So it's going to be an interesting spring for sure. Thompson definitely has the leg up, and yes, to answer your question, I think the reason they did this is because look around college football. How many backup quarterbacks do you see playing throughout the course of the year? It happens all over the place. It happened to Texas last year, of course, with Thompson and the injuries that he endured, and he was the second guy in after Hudson Card. So he's been through this. Purdy has been through this. He was hurt at Florida State for a chunk of his 2 seasons. So and I think with the offense that even with this changed offense that Nebraska is going to run with Scott Frost bringing in Mark Whipple as the new OC out of Pitt, there's still going to be an element of quarterback run involved. And, in that situation, quarterbacks are more likely to get dinged up. So depth is a good thing.
Mitch, obviously a lot of changes going on, and we are fresh off one of the craziest coaching carousels ever, and Scott Frost remained in place. What's just sort of the feeling right now around the program and the immediacy needed to see some progress made?
Yeah, it's urgency with a capital U. I would say the fan base, if it wasn't split at the end of the 21 season, it was a very slight lean in favor of doing what Nebraska and what Trev Alberts, the first year athletic director, did. There was a huge financial stake at play if Nebraska had chosen to get rid of Frost after last season, and instead he got a renegotiated contract that'll kick in with a reduced buyout on October 1st of this year, which just happens to be the 5th game of the season against Indiana at home. So should be a good sense at that point of how this 5th season is going for Frost. He is undeniably on the hot seat, and if it doesn't go considerably better than what we saw in 2021, and you can gauge 2021 in a lot of different ways. The close losses. Some of the progress that Nebraska showed, especially on the defensive side, are positives. But at this point in Frost's tenure, going into year 5, it comes down to wins, and those 3 wins were not even close to what the expectation is going to be moving forward.
How much of the remake of the offensive staff do you expect to change the style in which maybe where Scott Frost would be maybe more hands off with the offense?
Yeah, I mean, his aim is to be more of a CEO kind of head coach, somebody who can take care of the things that experienced head coaches deal with, off the field things, work more on the defense, pay more attention certainly to the special teams, which has been just a gigantic problem for Nebraska. And I wrote about that today. And finally, Nebraska after 4 years Frost has hired a full-time dedicated special teams coordinator. It was needed. If not at the beginning, very, very soon after the beginning when he came in 2018, and here we are in 2022, and it's just now happening. Nebraska allowed touchdowns last year via kickoff return, punt return, punt block. There was a safety allowed on a muffed punt return in the season opener. There was an extra point blocked for a 2-point conversion. It had 2 other muffed punts that resulted in turnovers. It was just a disaster. And the coverage units were bad. The field goal kicking was bad. There were 4 missed extra points. In every way that special teams could have been terrible for Nebraska in 2021, it was, and worse. So, it's not really an exaggeration to say that special teams has cost Nebraska a half a dozen games over 4 years in Scott Frost's career. So you got to do this. And in addition to hiring a special teams coordinator, doing what he's done with the offense and moving away from calling plays, it allows him to take more of an interest in that. We'll see what the offense looks like. I think it's going to be very much under wraps until that opener. Nebraska's not going to give anything away in the spring and give any hints to Northwestern and those non-conference opponents about what the Whipple-Frost offense looks like. But there will be elements of what Frost liked to do, as I said, with the QB run game and some of the shorter passes, and incorporating the option as he did a year ago. And then with what Whipple did in taking Kenny Pickett to a Heisman Trophy finalist position last season.
Mitch, we always focus in these transfer portal rankings. They account for who you're bringing in, but I don't know that many of them really account for who you're also losing. But I know there's a lot of transfers, especially during the month of December for Nebraska. In terms of who's leaving, is there anybody notable that causes them to have to find a quick replacement? I mean, how do you view sort of their losses?
Well, Martinez is going to Kansas State, and he's the most notable of the losses, and obviously they've addressed that with Thompson and Purdy at the quarterback spot. Some linebackers, Nebraska has taken a bit of a hit at that position just today. Wyndon Ho'ohuli, a Hawaiian player from the 21 class, entered the portal. He was a top 200 prospect, a 4-star kid a year ago, the top defensive signee in the Huskers 21 class. But it's not been a huge, in terms of numbers, there's not been a huge loss to this point in the offseason. In fact, the last 2 off seasons that have saw a lot more in terms of departures from Nebraska than what we've seen so far this year. Of course, there's there's still quite a bit left. We're only in January, and I would expect when some of these transfers get into practice in March and into April, that it's going to thin out some of the ranks more, and you'll have some more transfers off of this team after spring practice because of the added competition that comes in, that has come in through the portal.
Thank God for the transfer portal, right? I mean, can you imagine the situation Nebraska would be in or Scott Frost would be in without it?
Yeah, I mean, recruiting would have been different. The way that they went about attacking a recruiting class for 2022 would have certainly been different if they hadn't known that the portal was going to be a big part of this newcomer group. That still doesn't necessarily excuse Nebraska for having the lowest ranked recruiting class in the Big Ten. Yeah, it was low on numbers, but it was also low on star value. You didn't see there's one 4-star player, Jaden Gold, who's an early enrollee at cornerback out of New Jersey. And the rest is a bunch of 3-star kids who may turn into be developmental players and be contributors in this program, as we've seen occur a lot in the Big Ten West. And in fact, in the Big Ten West, that's kind of been the path to success, is to taking that level of player at Iowa and Wisconsin and turning them into all conference kind of guys, into NFL kind of players. But it's not really been the formula that Nebraska has attempted to master. So there's not really a way to put a good spin on the way that recruiting went for Nebraska, but the portal has, at least to this point, temporarily saved the day for this group of newcomers.
Mitch, a couple of weeks ago, I actually had COVID, and I had all the symptoms you have, and I've been fine now other than a little annoying cough. You started going over those special teams mistakes, and I feel like I have COVID again because it was disastrous. The punt to Michigan State, the wrong side of the field, the fumble by Martinez for an easy field goal against Michigan. It's just, my God, it was
the Illinois game.
The Illinois game.
I told him, Mitch, I said, I've never seen a team that has found so many different ways to lose football games in excruciating fashion. I've just never seen anything like it.
Yeah, the block punt to Iowa. As soon as that ball was blocked, game was over, right? I mean, it's just insane. Yep. And I can't imagine. I'm serious. I'm calling. You guys were just bought by the New York Times. I'm calling them up and saying, hey, when you sign that Mitch Sherman up, he deserves some shrapnel pay because of all of the ways you've tried to describe them. Well, you have an article about Bill Busch, and if he can't fix it, doesn't matter what the special teams did. Wasn't it the story in a way true that if Scott Frost can't win there, then who can, unless you get like Nick Saban showing up? If he can't win, is that a frightening thought that if he can't do it, there may not be anybody who can?
It's a narrative that's been discussed at Nebraska at times over the past few years. When Scott Frost came, the expectation was that it was just going to take a little bit of time, then it would take off. And there were no concerns about sitting in year 5 and wondering if he was ever going to have a winning season, which is the position that Nebraska finds itself in now. I don't know that I necessarily agree with the narrative that if he can't do it, then no one can. I mean, if he can't do it, he there's reasons for that. There's reasons that he struggled. And I don't think it all has to do with the inability to win at a school like Nebraska. There's still tremendous resources, tremendous fan support. It's a conference in a division where Nebraska can have success. I mean, if you can win at Kansas State, if you can win at Iowa State, if you can win at Iowa and Minnesota and Purdue and Northwestern, then certainly you can win in Lincoln, Nebraska with the the things that are in place. So I understand that conversation, and when Frost was hired, it sounded like a good thing to say, like, hey, you're bringing home the native son who just is coming off a 13-0 season at UCF. He's the hot commodity in all of coaching. This guy had his choice. He could have gone to Florida. He maybe could have gone to Tennessee. If he waited around, who knows what job would have come open that he could have had. And these are not the kind of places that people are usually picking Nebraska over. So I get it, but I also come at it from the perspective that if there is a next coach that follows him in a short period of time here, like 2022, the end of the season, I don't think that guy has the deck stacked against him because Frost couldn't get it done. It's a new story and a new task for that guy. And yes, I think he would be able to win if the situation fell into place.
Mitch, thank you very much for your time, buddy. Appreciate it. Great to have you on the show. Can't wait to talk to you right during the college football semifinals with Nebraska next year against whoever. I know, seriously, good luck. I hope they can turn it around. It's been way too long. Thank you. Mitch Sherman, theathletic.com, covers Nebraska on the transfer. All right, Paul, we've hit Florida, Ole Miss, Nebraska. We got to get Florida State, but your arrogant writers won't call me
LSU.
back.
Yeah.
LSU, and they might, by the time we get somebody, maybe Scarborough, whoever, by Monday or so, they might have this quarterback who lands in their lap. I
I'm
don't
worried
know.
about Mike, by the way.
Well, we got to do Texas next week, too, because of what they've been able to do.
I'm a
Huh?
little worried about Mike. Mike and I have been texting.
Oh, my God, no.
A little
Mike
worried about Mike.
Scarborough has gone down the worst of all
Yeah,
of the diva rabbit holes.
I'm just worried about Mike. I mean, it happens. It happens. I just know.
He's been sending you those.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to
yeah.
blast him.
Yeah.
All right. God. Yuck. Tony Altamore sent us a few things in the chat room overnight when it comes to NIL. I'll try to, might have been this morning. I'll read that plus a couple of others as well. We will hear from Alvin Brooks.